You know, I mean, well.
Ready when you are, sir.
Now call to order the committee of the whole meeting for November 21st, 2022. The time is 7 p.m. Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member McLeaster?
Here.
Member Matheny?
Here.
Member Shroya?
Here.
Member Orr?
Here.
Member Volt?
Here.
7 present.
Okay, the first and only thing is the Parks and Recreation Committee. Christina.
Yeah, so this is something that would allow us, I guess it's kind of twofold. It would allow for fire inspections of food trucks that are operating within the city once annually. And then it would also allow food trucks to submit applications to operate in, or I guess to get a permit to operate in Price Park and Dogwood parks. They would pay a one-time annual fee, and it would be kind of a first come, first serve in the number of spaces allotted kind of thing. And so then, you know, just would make us a little more friendly to food trucks, would be, I think, a draw to people. They would really enjoy it in the parks. And then the other really cool thing that Ben told me is that we're using the rental registration software, right, to do all of this. So that's like a second use that he's found for that software now that we have it in place. Patrick, are there other details that you want to add on this?
Well, I think that we vetted this out through, like you say, through the fire department to try to automate some of that process for them by using the OpenGov software. So it's a plus for them. The fire department inspection fee is $25. And then as far as in the park goes, we're limiting it to Price and Dogwood. 3 parking spots in Price. Those would be at the western parking lot on Maple Street. There are some 4 parking spots there that run perpendicular and would be ideal for easy pull-in for a food truck. First come, first serve, just up to 3 spots there, and then up at Dogwood, just 2 spots, much smaller venue there, but we think it would add some attraction for those that are there, all day, something like this, particularly this summer. Obviously, it's going to be more seasonal than now. Nobody's going to be out in the food truck in January. And then weather breaks April, May, June, July, August, to see some action there. And there are a number of things that happen down there. This kind of started a few years ago, looking at some of the activities that occur in Price. And we do have a very large presence for Pokemon in the park at Price every second Saturday or something to that effect all year round. It's a big thing. So we think that was kind of the catalyst to make it more of an event, more of a destination. There was something like that. And it's up to them. We're not going to go out and seek trucks to do it. It's just, we'll put the word out and it'll be up to them. Thank you.
I was wondering, sorry, Daryl, go ahead. I was wondering if for a food truck to invest the money in filling up with supply, if they're going to be concerned that it's first come, first served, they might not be able to get a spot, especially on those big event days or the youth fishing tournament. That there might be a possibility in the future of going down the path of reserving a spot, maybe 1 or 2 spots being reserved or half the spots being reserved.
Yeah, that's a great point, David. I think that's how we would approach it. I mean, when we first did the pavilions, the picnic shelters and whatnot, we just kind of did it. You didn't, first come, first served, but then they proved to be very popular and it was a thing. So then we changed it over to a reservation system, and we can do that as well here. I'm just not quite sure, how extensive the interest will be, so
I'm thinking on those special events, it's gonna be,
could be.
could be tough, and then you're gonna have maybe trucks parking in other areas or across the street or being an issue. So just something I'd like for you to think about, putting up the reservation like you did the pavilion, or if somebody's in the pavilion and they want to bring a food truck for, give them tickets, okay, so your food's on, part of the pavilion and part of the event that we're having.
There's, I can see that. We certainly have the software already in place through our rec rental program that we can just add that as a location that can be reserved. So we could do that all online. Some of I guess one of the things that we would have to work out though is, somebody that would just get in there and reserve it all the time and always be the only one there and no one else ever gets a chance to do this. We might have to work out some of those bugs, but I certainly will make a note of it and try to.
Yeah, solicit feedback from the food truck owners themselves on what they would like to see them police themselves.
And I think I like what you said, maybe half the spots would be reserved, half the spots wouldn't, because then you might also run into the situation where somebody reserves it and they say, you know what, I'm gonna go to this other event because it might be a little more lucrative. They don't show up and then you have an empty spot. So that might be something you'd run into as well.
Yeah, Daryl?
Patrick, what are your thoughts about the legislation giving the administration the authority to waive the cap? Set the cap, but if you suddenly discover that you've got an event or you've got large demand, we place in your hands the authority to waive that cap if the vendor has met all the other requirements.
I guess, I appreciate the confidence that you have in the administration, but I would say that I would prefer to come back to city council on something like that because it's starting to change, really the nature of the park.
Okay, fair enough.
I might not be here someday, God forbid. And what if they put 10 in there? Kind of starts to change the whole feel of the park, so I think I would defer to council on that.
Fair enough.
There,
This second question I had, I think we touched on this earlier. We feel that we need proof of liability.
Yeah, we do. That was something that you had mentioned to me last week, and we're working on, we'll incorporate that into here. I mean, certificate of general liability.
What are your thoughts? Because I've seen the ice cream guy down there during the summer and stuff of that nature at night, And when the Pokemon or whatever the kids are doing, there are hundreds and hundreds of kids are parking all along there. Could we maybe reserve a spot on the Lindy, or not Lindy Lane, but on the Glenwood entrance?
In addition to?
Yes. Because there's some
Actually, a
space
good
up
idea.
there, and we probably could have 1 or 2 spaces up there as well.
It's actually a good idea. What if there were
I mean, food
1 or
trucks,
2 in each entrance?
I get that, but food trucks, I don't know, when I've worked with them, they don't want a lot of competition, right? Like,
Well, they want
if
everything
there
for
are,
nothing.
well, sure, but if there are a couple of hundred people, that's not enough people for 4 food trucks,
No,
you
but
know?
we're charging such a little amount,
Yeah,
all right? And then with this registration, with the events that we have downtown, which several food trucks come to, they could register with that registration in January, also cover our Oktoberfest or our Main Street Festival, stuff
no,
of that.
not at all.
So the part that relates to the fire department
Mhm.
would apply to them all year round, no matter where they are.
Okay,
Part, as it relates to Price Park and Dogwood Park are specific just to that, so they're not required to do anything else at any other location in the city, as far as registering.
because the chamber charges.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I do like that the fee for the parks goes back into the parks.
Anything else?
I like it.
Okay.
Pokemon? Did I pronounce it wrong? Pokemon?
So we will look at the,
It's Pokemon Go.
Stephanie.
Oh, that,
Yeah.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to see John and Stephanie on Saturday morning playing Pokemon Go, I think. So,
Pokemon.
Pokemon.
Waiting for the food trucks.
Yeah. All right, so we'll look at the certificate of general liability insurance requiring something like that and whether or not to allow the spaces to be reserved. With that in mind, I move that we move this to the agenda.
So
Hold second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Take a motion to adjourn. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned. Okay.
Cool.
We'll start the next meeting shortly.
You all from Canton High School?
Yeah.
Okay. You came in just a couple minutes late. But the first part of this meeting was a committee of the whole meeting. And this is where the council committee, they discussed items or an item. And today they were talking about food trucks and how that could be, how they could be controlled or supervised or for a couple of our parks. Okay. The second part of this meeting now will be the general city council. And as you can see, you have an agenda. That's what's going to happen. And Matt Stroy is the president of council, so he'll call that meeting to order. However, my experience with you all is you need something signed.
I was
You
just
were
gonna
here.
say that.
Mm-hmm.
Now call to order the city council meeting of Monday, November 21st, 2022. The time is 7:13 PM. Opening prayer, Jamie.
All right. We could all stand. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we're here tonight to discuss topics that will benefit our constituents and the North Canton community as a whole. Come, give us wisdom to make the right decisions. Let us not make biased decisions, but decisions based upon solving the problems of your children. Be our leader during this meeting. Give us direction to make the right decision for North Canton. Open our eyes to solutions and help us make our community great for all who call it home. Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, then would you please call the roll?
Member Matheny,
Here.
Member Wyrick.
Here.
Member McLeaster,
Here.
Member Warren,
Here.
Member Stroya,
Here.
Member Volt, Member Orr,
Here.
7 present.
All right. Can I have a motion and a second to approve as presented the minutes from November 7th, 2022? Revolt moves.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And can I have a motion and a second to approve the legislative year annual report, subject to corrections necessitated, nice word there, Ben, by actions of council at this meeting?
Revolt will move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, members of the public wishing to address city council may do so. Each speaker will be granted 5 minutes. Comments shall be limited to legislative items appearing on tonight's agenda only. Rules for speaking will appear on both screens. This will serve as the only warning for everyone in attendance. Any violation of the rules will result in ejection from the premises. Anyone wanting to address council?
Clerk Osborne, 307 Fairview Street, Southeast, North Canton, Ohio. I speak once again against a portion of the ordinance number 80/2022, wherein the salaries of North Canton elected officials shall be paid at a monthly rate equal to the minimum earnable salary designated by the Ohio Public Employees Retirement System to qualify for full-time service credit. The 11-member OPERS Board of Trustees is responsible for the administration and management of OPERS. Delegating the salaries for North Canton's elected officials to an 11-member OPERS Board of Trustees directly violates the city charter. Section 4.04 of the charter, titled Salaries and Bonds, states in part, the council shall have the power to fix the compensation of its members and the mayor, and I won't read the rest of it because I read it to you last week. Why is it that council chooses to abdicate its charter mandated authority to set the compensation of its members to the OPERS board? In this ordinance, council fixes salaries for all in the city as required by the charter, but oddly, not for elected officials. The charter does not allow council to delegate away its duties. That fact was reaffirmed just recently in a Stark County Common Pleas Court case number 2014 CV 00757. To refresh everyone's mind, the city took exception through court action when a citizen initiative passed 3-1 by the voters seeking to restrict health care benefits for elected officials. When the law became effective at the start of 2013-2015 term of council, 4 members of council chose to ignore it. Marcia Kiesling, Jeff Peters, John Snyder, and Stephanie Warren. The court affirmed in their ruling that it is council who has the power to set the compensation of its elected officials and no others. This council can now ignore its charter as well as the 2014 ruling. Cannot now ignore its charter as well as the 2014 court ruling. Further, the manner in which you are now attempting to proceed does not give citizens an opportunity to address proposed raises for its elected officials in an open meeting. For decades, raises for elected officials were discussed in an open meeting of council as a single ordinance. Now you are varying raises for elected officials among raises for over 100 other city employees. A referendum of this ordinance, drafted as it is, would delay raises for all employees of the city until decided by voters in next November's general election. Why would city council open the door to this kind of chaos for all the employees of the city? Actions of North Canton City Council must comply with the city's charter and the law. And in regard to statements made by Councilmember Darrell Revolt following my November 14th, 2022 remarks on this same ordinance, there is no ambiguity in the definition of the verb fix. Mr. Revolt, throughout your on-again, off-again membership on this council over the last 40 years, there was never any misunderstanding of the charter. Why, after all these decades, are you now confused? North Canton City Councils, since the North Canton City Councils, since the North Canton City Charter was adopted in 1961, have acted openly with the adoption of standalone ordinance to set the compensation of its members. Please continue in that manner. Citizens deserve transparency. That ordinance that was passed by the voters 3-1 in 2012 was on the books for almost a year and a half. And as I said, you had 4 members who went ahead and just thought, guidance with your former fire law director, who you fired, ultimately advised them that, hey, he would defend you if you just had to go ahead and take it. Well, I had no choice but to defend that, and I lost the court
Is this an
action.
item on the agenda?
But you can't have it both ways. You can't say in one situation,
Good check.
Point of order, is this an item on the agenda, President?
It's not.
thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address council tonight? Moving on to old business. Ben, could you read ordinance 76-2022?
An ordinance authorizing, an ordinance authorizing the vacation of 1, all of a 10-foot wide alley between 415 Portage Street Northwest and the associated garage to the south. 2, all of an 11-foot wide alley between 401 Portage Street Northwest and 341 Portage Street Northwest. And 3, all of an 11-foot wide alley between 337 Portage Street Northwest and 329 Portage Street Northwest, located within the corporate limits of the city of North Canton.
Okay, this is the third reading of this. There's no new information since the first reading we had. Any questions, comments from anybody? I move that we adopt this.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you read resolution 79-2022?
A resolution adopting the solid waste management plan for the Stark, Tuscarawas, Wayne Joint Solid Waste Management District.
Jamie?
All right, well, this is the third reading for this item. We've discussed it at length previously. So every year, every solid waste district in Ohio must periodically revise and update their solid waste management plan, and this is what this is. So unless there's any questions, I move that we adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Ben, would you please read ordinance 80-2022?
An ordinance amending various provisions of Chapter 155 Personnel Regulations of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton to modify various personnel rules and regulations and the titles and compensation levels of certain personnel.
So this is our third reading. This sets the salary caps for each position, that exempt positions only, none of the union ones. The increase is automatically set by Social Security's cost of living, which was released on October 13th at 8.7%. There is also in this a increasing for uniform allowance and adding some different position titles. Enforcement coordinator, community outreach manager, and IT systems public policy analyst. Any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts?
Hey, just a question. So it's an 8% increase? Patrick was able to negotiate with the unions, what, 3.5%? Plus that 8 or no?
This is for,
This is for non-union, right?
right, this is only non-union. It's matching the Social Security cost of living increase that took place and set in October. I'll make a motion that we pass the third reading of ordinance 80-2022.
Proposal second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you please read ordinance 81-2022?
An ordinance amending Chapter 137, Department of Police of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton, specifically Section 137.04 Personnel, in order to increase the authorized number of police patrolmen and full-time dispatchers.
David.
So police and fire civil service, they have personnel caps that this council and future councils will set. And we're raising that cap to 25. And we're adjusting it so that Chief Kemp can assign SRO officers and not have them as part of the assigned number of officers. Questions? I'll make a motion that we pass ordinance 81-2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you read resolution 82-2022?
A resolution to acknowledge the rates and fees utilized to establish the budget for the 2023 fiscal year.
Just it's exactly as it said, and it talks about the water rate, recreation rates, fire prevention services, emergency medical. But you have to say and figure all those out before you actually do the budget, so this is that resolution to do that. Any questions? Right, I move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you read ordinance 83-2022?
An ordinance authorizing appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures and related one-time permanent transfers of monies made to various funds for the period beginning January 1, 2023 and ending December 31, 2023.
Stephanie.
Okay, this is our budget, and we have talked about this on a really high level, but you have all the information that you need from OpenGov and the different stories, and both our finance director and assistant finance director did a great job in this. Our director of administration talking to everybody. Are there any other questions? Director of Finance, have you received any other questions, concerns, emails from any of the public members? Okay, if nothing else, I move to adopt.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
Motion
you.
carries. Ben, would you please read ordinance 84-2022?
An ordinance authorizing the Director of Administration to advertise and receive bids and authorizing the mayor, upon Board of Control approval, to enter into a contract for the 2023 street resurfacing program at a cost not to exceed $350,000 and declaring the same to be an emergency.
Okay, this is the 2023 street resurfacing program. And this has an emergency clause attached to it. Any questions, comments? I move that we adopt.
Seconds?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And can I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requiring three readings?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, can I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 84-2022 under the suspension of the rules?
4 seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you please read ordinance 85-2022?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of Administration of the City of North Canton to file a petition for annexation of territory owned wholly by the Commissioners of Stark County, Ohio, and adjacent to the City of North Canton as permitted under Ohio Revised Code, Section 709.16, and declaring the same to be an emergency.
Just for those who are new, this is 2.5 acres of property located at the intersection of Pittsburgh Road and Apple Grove. It's essentially southwest of that intersection. 80% of the proposed annexation is roadway. The property is owned by the county. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to adopt. Read ordinance 85-22.
Se-
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requiring 3 readings?
Full motion moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And can I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 85/2022 under the suspension of the rules?
Revolt moves.
Sec,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, Ben, would you please read ordinance 86/2022?
An ordinance amending Chapter 1310 Contractor Registration, specifically Section 1310.08, Work Without Permits/Registration of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton to correct references to other code sections and declaring the same to be an emergency.
As we've discussed, this is a technical correction. The correction is contained in the ordinance itself. Not particularly complicated. I think we had an off number, did we not, Ben?
Yes, it's currently says 1309, should say 1302.
Any questions? Motion to adopt?
Second?
All in favor?
aye,
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requiring 3 readings?
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And can I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 86/2022 under the suspension of the rules?
Revolt moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you please read ordinance 87/2022?
An ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance of the City of North Canton to make final appropriation amendments for current expenses and related one-time advances and/or permanent transfers of monies made to various funds needed during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022, and within the available resources in order to balance and close the fiscal year.
This just allows us to balance and close, as the last sentence says. Gina, anything else? Okay, I move to adopt.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to new business. Ben, would you please, let's see here. Okay, Ben, would you please read ordinance?
Yep, so suspend Rule 23 first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I have a motion and a second to suspend Council Rule 23 to allow for consideration of ordinance 88/2022?
Revolt moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you please read ordinance 88/2022?
An ordinance establishing Chapter 707 Mobile Food Units of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton, thereby establishing regulations for the operation of mobile food units in the City of North Canton.
Christina.
So this is what we just talked about in the committee meeting, the fire inspections once a year and the annual permit to operate in 2 of our parks. If there are no other questions, I move that we adopt the first reading.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, any final calls for new business? Okay, moving on to department reports. Patrick, Director of Administration.
Yeah, so I know that we'll be looking at December for, a couple meetings, and then we have a short hiatus over the holiday. We come back in January. And so what I would like us to do is allow Gina and I to work on this in the next 2 weeks when we come back to the first meeting in December to start a dialogue on the levies for next year. So we know that we have a storm water levy and a street maintenance levy that renew next year. And we know that the revenues that each of those bring in is approximately $375,000 apiece. And that ordinance that you approved tonight for the street repaving of 350, pretty much, that's uses it all up, obviously, you can see. And, if we were to have a conversation with our engineer, which I've done over the last couple of years, is that, we don't feel that the 350 is adequately addressing the street repair. Our streets have been in pretty good shape for a long time, but if you start to lose it, you're gonna start losing it on a grand scale. Lots of streets, so I think that we need to do a little dialoguing with the county on, what a different levy amount, how many mills, what would it bring? And then have a conversation about that with council as to what it is your intent is. So we think that our intent is that we're gonna ask for an increase. It's a question for council and the mayor to decide how much of an increase that is. It's never pleasant, but I know from working with all of you that, among the 8 elected officials, you've all made a commitment to be transparent with the voters on what it costs to run this city, and that hasn't been the case in the past. So we're going to put it out there, and ultimately the voters will decide, and we'll have to work and live within those means should they make that. In the last election, though, there were a number of issues that were tax-related that were passed throughout the county, so I don't think that voters are turning their head away from these issues. So that certainly for the storm and certainly for street, we need to take a look at that. And our intent would be to get those on the ballot for a May election. So we would need to get council to finalize and adopt what they need and get it down to the Board of Elections by their requirement, which is generally 90 days before the election. We would prefer to do that, as there could potentially be some other millage levies on the ballot for November, and we would want to kind of be separate from that. That's the strategy. We also, I think if we can get that going, then we can, after that is completed, come back and start talking about, our water rates and where we are and what we know different from when the council last looked at it, new regulation. So, and somewhat segueing on that is that, we know that we have a desire to put in a new well field. We've had a preliminary one done at Arrowhead. Why we bought the place, I'm told, all those years ago. So, the preliminary results look very promising. I should have, by the end of this week, the final results on all the particular readings, and they all look really good. And if that's the case, then, we would look to, we'd want to build that well, and we'd want to get that water into our system and blend it with all the rest of our water. And to do so, we would need to, obviously pipe it to the water treatment plant. And we had a preliminary cost done on what all that might entail. And it's a sizable number, but it's around $1 million to do all of that. The well, I think, is like 300, and the piping is about 700. I have a plan on how to pay for that. And if this is something that when we get together the next time, all the numbers look good, then we would want to talk about transferring some non-performing assets, land that we have that we could sell, and I think generate sufficient revenues to more than pay for the well. Otherwise, it would be $1 million price tag, part of the asset management plan that was, when the asset management plan was adopted, this didn't figure into that because we didn't know, because of some of the guidelines and regulations that were being published by Ohio EPA that were affecting how we were running the water operation. So it's something that we have to adapt to as time goes on. We just can't, it's not a static model that you can just set it and forget it, the old Ron Popeil method, and come back in 5 years and look at it. So that is on that. And then the rental registration has been up and running. We talked with someone earlier today who had been critical of it and reported a very positive experience with the whole online process, loves the software, how easy it is to do. And while they were doing that, they went ahead and saw that you could do a burn permit too online. And so they went ahead and did that, got that done. And so the inspections are being scheduled. This particular individuals will be a week from Wednesday, so pretty quick. And the rest is history. That was my report.
Thank you.
Back to the streets, 375,000. Do you have any guesses, or did this, any of the engineers, what we really do need? And is our snow removal in that?
No,
Is
snow
that
is
separate?
separate.
Okay.
Do we have a number? We'll be in a position to come back with a number
Okay.
when you guys next meet. But, I would just caution you that, there was a time, let me rephrase it, having sat where you sit, there's always going to be some road somewhere that some person will always say isn't good, and they want it fixed. And councils from some period past that had a lot of funds available because the Hoover Company was still here and was throwing off, tremendous amounts of revenue to the city, that was spent doing various things like that. And perhaps that's something that people got accustomed to, that we would always be able to do that. But once that money ran dry, we didn't really keep up with it. And
And Hoover's been gone for quite some time now.
15 years.
And shame on us, council and previous councils, for sitting back. We have to have that transparency with the voters and the community, because they might not like it, but I think they just need educated. We're not doing business like we did 20-25 years ago. It's a different ballgame.
And we have to keep in mind, that's a great point, John, we have to keep in mind too, the inflationary aspects of what we're dealing with today, and supply chain issues and things that affect the pricing.
Price of cement,
Price of
It's
cement,
unbelievable.
asphalt, price of labor.
asphalt, same thing,
Petroleum.
chemicals,
Mhm.
everything's gone up. We haven't stayed up with the times.
Patrick, I think it would be helpful to remind everyone that Rob has done been particularly effective securing grant funds to cover the costs for our major arteries.
Mhm.
We've used some of this 375 for our share, but grants will not cover residential streets. And that's where, in many instances, we see the need, to your earlier point about playing catch-up, it's on the residential side. It's not Main Street, it's not Everhard, it's not Maple, east or west. It's the residential street.
And for the most part, the asphalt that goes on any of those streets costs the same.
It does indeed.
Yeah, I should announce as well that the engineer was in receipt of an official acknowledgement that the city was receiving a federal grant for East Maple from Marquardt to Taft. After one. I think it's Taft, yeah. It was $1 million for the streetscaping, that next phase. However, that is with fiscal year 2027. So the monies wouldn't be available to July of 27. That gives us plenty of time to get our portion together for, what we need to do and set aside. But That will be for some future council and administration to deal with.
Just for our students, if we go back, and I don't have the number, Gina, you might. We're talking about $350,000 appropriation for streets. Rob has dragged in annually how many millions of dollars for these other projects? 6, 5, 7?
I'd say 5.
5? So that gives you some sense of the scale in which we're operating. This is just a little tiny portion of our overall road budget. But it's one that's critical because it's on residential streets where we can't apply that 5 million.
Let's go to the Director of Finance, Gina.
Well, speaking of transparency, Mr. Orr said, we definitely want to appreciate and let you know that we appreciate your support, as well as your participation in building the budget and in explaining the budget, communicating the budget. They're all just very useful tools in communicating the budget to our constituents, obviously. And so Jim was actually able today to take OpenGov and create a PDF. So now you can click on the create a PDF, and obviously it's a static document. It's as good as until we have our first amendment next year. But it does help to explain quite a bit of things. And if you need to turn pages, then you can print 97 pages and turn them if you want. But you can't drill in and click into them. So we just wanted to let you know that that is available. It's on the website as well. We did Friday, we had our kickoff meeting for our new utility software implementation. The schedule looks like, the name of it is called MuniLink, and it will have a new online payment portal that goes along with that called Invoice Cloud. So we're going to be working with both of those systems. Our target date is April 18th, which is way ahead of our initial discussions of August of next year. So we're looking at right around tax season, which I believe is Jim's anniversary, or his 1-year anniversary. So that'd be a great way to kick that off. I'm going to tell my update. Did you have anything to add, Jim?
That was the report that you get in the PDF version, it's linked, so if you just wanna like click on the table of contents on the home page, it takes you whichever department you're looking for.
All right, thank you. Mayor.
Well, thank you, President Storia. I thought you were gonna save me till the end, but anyways,
Check it.
just follow up on the, on Rob Grant. You know, what helps us is he has ready-made projects, and oftentimes we're looking for grants, or money that's becoming available. Other cities don't have projects that are ready to go, but Rob is that far ahead, and many times we are awarded grant money because he has projects ready and no other jurisdiction or municipality have. But anyways, on ordinance 83, 2022, thank you for passing our budget for 2023. I can't thank our administration and our finance department, council, and our 12 department heads, all getting involved over this process over the last several months. And this helped us go forward with one of the passages of our issues, was to be able to present a balanced budget by December 31st. And tonight we have that approved, so thank you very much. Water quality is a key element of our community. And I guess looking at the well, possibly going forward at Arrowhead, that's one of the main things that we've always looked at, and I was very concerned about that, maintaining water quality for our community. And also the amount of volume that we go through on a daily basis. So I'm very interested in going forward with that well. Just a couple safety things. First of all, before I forget, again, happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and I hope everybody has a safe and healthy Thanksgiving holiday coming up. But unfortunately, if you're following the news, a Cleveland firefighter, Johnny Tetrick, was killed by a hit and run while at a crash scene up on one of the interstates outside of Cleveland. When I was coming in to council tonight, we had our fire trucks, 2 police cars right there, and about the 100 or 200 block of Apple Grove Northeast with a with a 3-car crash there, 2 or 3 car crash. And there again, I just hope the public realizes when they see those lights and our safety personnel at a crash scene or an incident, that they do slow down and be patient and allow the necessary time that you may have to wait to allow our safety personnel to do what they're doing and taking care of victims or and watching out for their own safety. I can't tell you how I feel for the family and for all firefighters and anyone in public service and our safety services. So just a word of caution for our own community. Be careful when our first responders are on the street. Slow down, okay? You'll get to your destination sooner or later. We don't need any of those injuries to happen here. And knock on wood, we've been very fortunate with, for our safety personnel when they're out and about on the street. You've heard a couple other things tonight about our interactive software. Yeah, folks, this is progress, okay? And progress is impossible without change. So we're changing things up a little bit here. But every day that we're in here, I think we're progressing to something better for our future. So again, just stay tuned. I know we have more things that will be, coming forward in the coming year, but thank you again for what we've been able to accomplish so far this year. Thank you, President Story. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Council Clerk Ben.
I would just like to do some quick housekeeping items, as this is the first change of session for 4 of you. So next week we will have our organizational meeting where we do a number of housekeeping items, including re-electing president and vice president. You guys have a number of appointments to make, all of which either must be or have traditionally been members of council. So be thinking about if you want to serve in any of those roles. And then at the request of President Stroya, what we're going to start doing with this coming organizational meeting is adopting a full calendar for next year at the outset. So I guess jumping ahead a little to the meetings calendar, be aware that next week is organizational meeting, not a regular meeting. Thank you.
Perfect.
Where are you going to have that meeting, Ken?
Well, Mr. Mayor, it's your right to call it.
We're going to do it right here at our council chambers, okay? What time was that again?
Currently 5 o'clock, although Dave might like to petition you to change it.
A little later would be a little more helpful.
Later would be more helpful?
Yes.
How much later, sir?
9 o'clock. Oh, yeah.
6 would be ultimate. I could squeeze out and get here by 5:30.
But with the, I'm going to throw it out to council. I'm good with 6 o'clock if you all are. Can we do that?
Good.
At 6?
Thank you, Mayor.
Very fine. Shake on it. Okay, it's a deal. 6 o'clock, organizational meeting. Thank you.
Is that
It's a
Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It must be the first 3 days of December. I figured you all didn't want Friday or Saturday.
That's good.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to council reports. Jamie.
All right, thank you. Actually, I thank the mayor for those great remarks and the reminder about watching out for our safety services. It's something that I thought about and it weighed heavily on me as I read the news about that up in Cleveland. It's just absolutely awful. I'm going to be very, very brief tonight. I just wanted to wish everybody here in the room, listening online, and all our fellow North Cantonians a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. So that's the end of my report this evening.
Thanks, Jamie. David.
Ward 2 does not have a report this evening.
Stephanie.
I will be brief as well. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Christina, great to have you back again.
Mhm.
you.
Love hearing your voice and comments. And then thank you, everybody, for passing the budget and meeting with Director of Finance and Operations and the Mayor. And Jim, you've done a great job of making sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And thank you for all that. So we're moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you. John.
Well, I'm always short. So. This time of year, we live in a great community. I'm thankful for it. Able to live in a great community like North Canton. Great schools. You know, we've just torn down the home side of the football stadium. by private donations. So our local citizens do care, and they will give back to this great city that we live in. We have great policemen, we have great firemen, we've got great city administrators. I'd just like to thank all of them for this. I've had a lot of calls, and I want to thank Pat for driving through the ward. I don't know if you've gotten any calls. The leaves in the pickup has been somewhat, a little bit of a disappointment. And they will get picked up. It's just when, we don't know, we like to hope. So, call back those residents and tell them, there are staffing shortages and stuff of that nature Kimball's going through. I've got a lot of that. I think the baseball field, we either took it down or got blown away with these heavy winds lately around the park over at Whitworth. But that field looks great. There's a little bit of water on the third base side, but I think that with all that wind, it might have just blown it across. But my constituents in the fourth ward, they continue to reach out to me, and I reach back to them, and I'm getting a lot of great ideas. So they are happy with what we're doing here. And that's all I have to say, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there.
Thanks, Jim. Daryl.
Well, as everyone has graciously surrendered their time to me, I'd like to, first of all, just revisit the budget process. This was arguably the best budget process that I've participated in. I think what made it particularly exceptional was the fact that it combined detailed briefing with a discussion of our strategic priorities as we look forward. What is it that we really want to accomplish as a city? And it took a huge amount of work to get us to that point, and I appreciate it. I can remember occasions when we argued over whether we ought to purchase a cell phone or not, something EMS. Well beyond that, and that's great. I think we also skipped over in the reports an acknowledgement that our clerk has done a terrific job on rolling out the software for the rental registration and the burn permits. Clearly, we have an individual who is comfortable with and can manage that software and is dragging us into the 21st century. And that's a great thing.
Thank you.
I'm old.
You're right.
And
Pause after you think that.
I'm confused. I'm confused. Terribly confused as I sit here. But I want to say to Mr. Osborne tonight that your assertion that the compensation approach violates the charter is without reasoned legal analysis. It's simply a statement. The fact of the matter is the charter does say give council the authority to fix compensation. And I would suggest to any of you, check the definition of fix. We have done that. We have established a method of compensation. Establish, synonym for fix. But I'm confused. But I'm particularly struck by the plea or the statement that citizens deserve transparency. It's a good thing. Transparency. We just came through a ballot initiative in which one individual weighed in without disclosing his name. Spent $7,500. Didn't bother telling any of the voters who was behind the mail. I think that is just the ripest form of hypocrisy from someone who pleads for transparency.
Thank you for your time.
Do you need more?
No. Christina.
I'm not going to be short because I haven't been here a lot. So catching up on news from last week's meeting, I just want to congratulate administration and Catherine especially on the Ohio Parks and Recreation Association Award for Dogwood Park, highly deserved. I'm not surprised. We were there last year and there are some really great projects, but that park's amazing. So just really proud of that. Winterfest will be Saturday, December 3rd from 4 to 7:30 p.m. And I just have to say, like, gosh, I've worked with, for all of these events, I don't know, I'm always involved somehow. And I ended up meeting with a bunch of people from the city, Frank is there and Todd Reed, who does the electric, and Kelly Hart, and, just all department head or the heads of all of these areas that make these events go on. And they're so agreeable and they're so happy to be there and they're excited about it. And I feel that every time I'm really at City Hall, I'm meeting with Ben and meeting with Patrick and the mayor, and it's a great staff and I'm just really grateful. But anyway, Winterfest, Saturday, December 3rd, 4 to 7:30 p.m. So make sure you all have that on your calendars. Be lighting the tree and eating from food trucks and drinking hot cocoa. And the something else I'm really excited about is we've been hard at work on the master plan. You may all remember we had a presentation about that. We formed an ad hoc committee. That committee met a few times and developed a draft of a new plan, which you'll all have in your email, I think, before December 1st. So you can take a look at that. I'm really proud of what came together, and I think you guys will be excited about some of the outcomes as well. So I'm really excited for you to see that. And then finally, it's, Thanksgiving week. So I just want to say I'm incredibly grateful for the grace and patience of the community, of all of you around this table, as I have dealt with health issues since mid-June, and easing back in as quickly as I can, and I'll still be in and out, but I'm just incredibly grateful for all of you. That's all.
We're grateful to have you back.
Thanks.
All right, well, this covered most of what I was gonna say. October 30th, we're gonna do the tree decorating.
November.
November.
November, oh my gosh. Worth it. Okay, yeah, November 30th, starting at 10 a.m. If you guys can make it, if anyone can make it, it'd be great. If not, Jamie is committed to do most of the work. That's great. I just want to say have a happy Thanksgiving, be safe. Let's go over final call for new business.
No, and I have one quick thing I forgot to mention. I apologize for missing last Monday. It was just one of those days, you're getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and I didn't want to pass anything along. But I followed on our website, it was great, so I was there with you guys.
Good.
Glad you're feeling better.
Okay, let's go over the meetings calendar. On the 28th, well, there will be no meeting. On the 22nd, or the 1st, December 1st, 6 p.m. we decided on is the organizational meeting that will be here. December 5th is a public hearing. We'll probably have, but we can't set that until we elect the new council. Then December 12th will be another public hearing and probably a regular council meeting, and that will be the last of the year, correct? That being said, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourn.